One moment changed my career, and one conversation changed my life. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Ignition Factor. My name is Chris Lukey, and I really appreciate you being here. I spent nearly 30 years in the fire service, and I'd like to share with you my story, my journey, and my mission. I actually call it my ignition mission. So either this will resonate with you or it won't. But my purpose is to come to people like you who I know are searching for something. And I want to give you the tools and the understanding of why you are the way you are, why you have the results in life you currently have, why you think positive, why you think negative, and why sometimes you self sabotage. And I want to tell you a story about my journey, but this is not just about the pain. This is about giving you hope and a solution to help you stop worrying and start living. This is a scientific framework and a blueprint that I was fortunate enough to get my hands on late in my career, but I'm grateful that it happened. My goal is to make sure that you don't have to wait till the end of your career, and I want to get this into the hands of everybody as soon as possible. Now, this program will change your life both personally and professionally. It'll unlock your mind and you will discover a whole new world. You'll discover a person and a world that's already inside of you. You just need to learn how to get it out of you. You see, we as humans, we're all exactly the same. We all behave a lot differently, but we are exactly the same in nature. It's your mindset that dictates the results you're getting in life. But unfortunately, your company, your workplace, your corporate trainings, they don't teach you how to think. They never did, and they never will. So I'm taking all these teachings to create an impact for the people who need it the most, you. Now, if you look at someone's results on the outside, it's a direct reflection of what's going on the inside. And if I can give you all this information and make it available to you constantly and consistently throughout your life or throughout your career, I know it'll make a dramatic improvement in your mental health and your overall mental well being. Personally and professionally, it'll take you to new levels. It'll take you professionally to levels in your career you never thought possible. It'll even take your business to levels you never thought possible. And I don't say those things lightly because I know what it's like to be stuck. I've been there. Nobody understands a first responder greater than a first responder. But I know there's a solution. I know there's a solution to creating the life of your dreams, the life of joy, peace, health, and happiness. What happened to me late in my career shouldn't happen to anyone, no matter what stage of the career you're in. And I hesitated for nearly 4 years to tell my story. I hesitated because of the stigma. I hesitated because I didn't want to be embarrassed. But then I had a light bulb moment. And I realized everybody knows I was a first responder for nearly 30 years. Everybody knows in my community and everyone I associate with, and my family and friends, they know I was a firefighter for nearly 30 years. And I'm pretty sure everybody knows what we see and do every day is not normal. So you can't expect us to be normal and act normal. And I think it's understandably that we are going to have a moment or several moments throughout our life and our career. And that's where I had my moment. I had a moment late in my career that changed the course of my life. But before I carry on, when I say what we see and do every day is not normal, I want you to understand, like, it's not normal to get a call to your friend's house and you realize it's a suicide and you have to cut him down from a rope. And then just a few short hours later, you go to coach your son's youth hockey team at the local community center and you have to pretend everything's okay. And there's nothing normal about going to a call where there's a youth at the bottom of a swimming pool. And when you pull up to the address, you know the people that live there. And The lady runs outside because she recognizes you and says, "Save my son." And the following few days or that weekend, I had to host a birthday party in my backyard that was a pool party. And you're trying to pretend everything's okay. And you're trying to act normal. Fortunately, that call with the boy in the swimming pool, he lived and survived. But it's also not normal to do CPR on a youth or a 2-month old or a 2-year-old. And at the end of the shift, you go home to your family and to your kids and you sit at the dinner table like everything's okay. So I realized we do all these things that aren't normal. And I realized, don't be ashamed or embarrassed to tell your story, because life as a first responder is not normal. And it's okay to have moments. It's okay. They're going to happen. And I had an episode in 2019 that changed the course of my life. And I thought, if I don't speak up now, how can I possibly help others? How can I give others the courage or the strength or the knowledge if I remain silent? So I decided to speak up and tell my story. And that's why I say I'm on an ignition mission. Back in 2019, while I was working at a platoon chief late in my career, our department would get together every 3 or 4 months and we'd have senior officers meetings. And these meetings, they would have all the chiefs, the deputies, senior officers, senior management, department heads. And typically there would be about 20 to 25 people in the room. And the meetings were very, very informal. You know, they would be about updates, current events, future goals, and basically the state of the fire department. And each shift, each platoon officer got a chance to get up and speak and talk about what's going on in the current events in their shift. And it was my turn to speak. Now, I've been part of these meetings for like 5 to 7 years. And as I mentioned, they were very informal. So finally, it was my turn to get up and speak. And I stood up, and suddenly I started shaking. My voice was trembling. My knees got weak. My palms got sweaty. Mom spaghetti. No, I didn't throw up, but I wanted to. I couldn't get the words out. And I could see everybody like staring at me. And as you know, like this was so uncharacteristic of me. I look back and I realize now I had a full blown PTSD attack out of the blue in front of nearly 30 people. And I had to go into the hallway and my assistant had to finish up the presentation. And as I walked up and down the hallway, embarrassed, I'm trying to wonder what the hell just happened. I'm trying to process all this. And at the end of the meeting's adjourned and everybody walks out of the meeting and I'm pacing up and down the hallway. And this is where my story really begins. Nobody asked me if I was okay. Nobody approached me to see if there was anything wrong. Nobody asked me if there was anything going on at home. Nobody asked me if I needed help. And at that moment, I just felt so alone on top of the embarrassment. And I felt helpless. And I went home that night and I told my wife what happened. And I said, "You're not going to believe what happened at the meeting today." But I said, I completely broke down in front of everybody. And I told her, nobody said a word to me. Nobody asked me if I was okay. Nobody asked me if I needed help. Nobody asked me if there was anything going on at home. And that night at home, again, the phone didn't ring. Nobody even called that night to see if I was okay. And as embarrassed as I was, I had to muster up the courage and the energy to go to work the next day. I get into my office and the same thing happens. Nobody comes into my office And nobody asked me if there's anything wrong. Nobody asked me if there's anything okay. Nobody asked me if there's anything going on at home. I obviously knew there was something wrong with me, but as first responders, it's difficult to ask for help. But it was business like usual at work, and everyone was carrying on like nothing happened. And soon afterwards, like my embarrassment turned into anger. I was angry. I was angry that day that I broke down in that meeting. My best friends were in that room. There was people in that room that I knew for 30 years, 25 years, 20 years, people I trusted, people I thought had my back. Let me ask you this. If during the course of that presentation, if a ceiling tile came down and fell on my head and split my head open and I was bleeding, you think anybody would have asked me if I was okay then? You're darn right they would have. But because you can't see the mind and you can't see the thoughts and you can't see the injury, you can't see mental health, I guess everybody just figured I would be okay. I was a senior officer with 28 years experience. Chris will figure it out. So as the days and weeks went by, I'm trying to process all this because it's lingering in my mind what happened, and I'm still embarrassed and still ashamed and trying to figure out what's going on. And I started asking myself a lot of questions. And one question kept coming up. And the question was this: who's rescuing the rescuers? Who's rescuing the rescuers? And I realized nobody's coming to save you. Nobody's coming to save you. Oh yeah, our department said they had all these programs in place. They said they were proactive with mental health and mental well-being. They said they cared. We had surveys. We brought in speakers. They said they were there to help you until you needed help. Does that sound familiar? Nobody's coming to save you until now. Now, I can't save you. You have to be the hero of your own journey. You have to put in the work. But I can provide you with the tools and the resources in the program that saved me, literally saved me. I'm on a mission. I'm on an ignition mission. My goal is to create a community of like-minded people where it is safe to tell your story, not to be embarrassed or scared, free of any judgment. I want to light a fire in your belly so strong that it gives you the courage to put your hand up, to stand up, to text, email, call, to say, I need help, and not be ashamed or embarrassed. And it's okay not to be okay, but it's not okay to stay there. And I eventually retired a few short months later. And I'm trying to process all this, and I'm still asking the question, who's rescuing the rescuers? And all this led me to have a conversation that changed my life. This led me to having a conversation with a gentleman named Bob Proctor. Now, unfortunately, Bob's passed away since. But what resonated with me initially is Bob in the 1960s was a firefighter in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, right near where I live. So I immediately resonated with Bob. I grew a liking to Bob. Bob later became one of the leading mindset experts and personal development coaches in the world. And after 60 years of science-backed research, Bob created one of the largest personal and business development companies in the world. And 20 years ago, Bob put this program together. He took all this information of science-backed research and he put together a program called Thinking into Results. Thinking into Results has transformed the lives of thousands of people around the world. And the information resonated with me so much, I enrolled in the program. And the program made such an impact in my life, I got certified as a coach. And I started the Ignition Factor, my coaching and personal development program. And my goal is to get Thinking into Results into every hands of every first responder on the planet. That's how much I believe in this product, and that's how much I know you need it, because it's disruptive. And I'm going to ask you to be open to trying something new. I personally wanted to focus forward, and I think that's why it's so hard for first responders to get help. I didn't want to sit in a chair and revisit old traumas. I didn't want to rehash old traumatic stories. I didn't want to be reminded and have old traumatic visions and images. I didn't want to bring all that back up. I wanted to move forward. And that's exactly what thinking into results did. Thinking into results doesn't drudge up the past. It takes you to exactly from where you are to exactly where you want to go in quantum leaps. It's unbelievable how fast. Now, you got to put in the work. And I now coach this program. And this program consists of 12 modules. It's 24 weeks in length. We have 2 accountability Zoom calls a week, so nobody gets left behind. And we do this together. It's called a mastermind. It's being together with a group of like-minded people who are all working towards a common goal. And there's nothing more powerful when you're in a room or you're in a group or you're in the company with like-minded people working together who care for each other. So I want you to know you will never be alone. Thinking to results is a bit of a non-traditional program. But let me ask you this. How's traditional therapy working for you if you can get it? Thinking to results is disruptive, but my goal is to disrupt an industry that desperately needs it. I made a phone call that day and had a conversation that changed my life. And I'm asking you to reach out to me and have a phone call with me, because I know it'll transform your life. And I know what it's like to be stuck. And I know nobody understands a first responder greater than a first responder. What would it feel like for you if you had order in your mind? What would it feel like you if you had clarity and awareness to your thoughts? If you were to understand, what would it feel like if you were to clearly understand why you are thinking the way you do? Where are all these thoughts coming from? And how are all these thoughts formed? You see, the world is so noisy right now. And unfortunately, we're letting all these circumstances and an environment we're in and the people we hang out with and the internet and YouTube and all this noise and social media, all these circumstances, we let the outside world control us. And our circumstances create our thoughts. And our thoughts create our feelings. And our feelings create our actions. And our actions create our results. And this is a vicious circle that goes on, and it's called struggle. And if you don't get control of your thoughts, you're going to continue to struggle. And when you learn how to break the chain, when you learn how to control, you can completely be in control of your circumstances. What would that feel like if you were to able to control things from the inside out instead of letting the outside world control you? Listen, as you can tell, I'm passionate about this. I want you to live life on fire. I want you to be your true self, your authentic self. What if it felt like if you were to live life unencumbered by the survival mind? Instead of surviving, you're actually thriving. What would that feel like? Isn't it time you started being the best version of yourself? Isn't it time you started being the best version for you, your family, your spouse, your kids, so you can start living the life you were truly meant to live? And we can accomplish all these results by thinking into results. And if this resonates with you, please don't hesitate to reach out via all my social medias. Facebook, Instagram. You can private message me through Messenger on Facebook. You can email me. My email address is ignitionfactorcoaching@gmail.com. ignitionfactorcoaching@gmail.com. I want to thank you for letting me share my story. I want you to be the hero of your journey. We can do this together. I'm Chris Luecke. Thank you for tuning into the Ignition Factor.